Hello everyone, my name is Smriti and I would like to welcome you all to the first class of this memorial drafting course. So through my class, I'll be giving you a general introduction to Modecode. Since all of you are beginners, this will help you to understand about Modecode and this will try to give you a picture about Modecode. So through my today's class, I'll be explaining about various aspects of Modecode. I'll be discussing everything in brief and I won't be going in detail with anything. So I'll be discussing about the formation of a team, how to analyze the mood proposition, how to do a research work, how to draft a memorial, how to present the case on the date of competition, that is the oral presentation. And before the conclusion, I'll discuss about certain do's and do nots that you have to keep in mind when you prepare for the competition. So let's get into the first slide, that is introduction to Modecode. As I have mentioned in my first slide, there are a few essential aspects of law school that every law student must understand. These include writing a research paper, presenting a research paper, competitions, client counseling competitions, arbitration, mediation, conciliation, negotiation competitions, judgment writing competitions, bail petition competitions, and so on. But out of all these, the most important is a Modecode competition. Why a Modecode competition is important? It is one of the most important aspects of pursuing law as a career option. Mooting is a representation of a court proceeding involving oral proceedings. So this will help you to get rid of the stage fright and also it will help you to gain more confidence. The next important aspect is the Modecode competition that you attended will always be a highlight in your CV when you are going for any job. If you are a student of law, then one of the important criteria for evaluating you is the number of Modecode competitions that you have attended and you have won prizes. It also helps you to get a command on the research work as well. It will help you to understand how you have to find the case laws in order to substantiate the points that you are arguing before the bench and so many things. So put together, Modecode is one of the most important aspect of a law school. And it also includes written submissions in the form of a complaint and a written statement. So in all way, Modecode is one of the most beneficial competition that you have to take part in your law school life. So now moving on to the next slide, there are two kinds of Modecode competitions, national Modecode competitions and international Modecode competitions. National Modecode competitions are those competitions which are organized by different law schools within the country. That is, the law schools all across India will organize competitions for law colleges throughout the country. So such kind of competitions are called national Modecode competitions. In India, mooting started in the year 1981 by the Bar Council of India. By the year 1985, mooting began to become the essence of law schools. So that is the origin of Modecode competitions in India. Whereas in international Modecode competitions, students from all across the world will come and join. So the first ever Modecode recorded in the world was in the year 1997. It was a common feature of inns of courts and chancery in the 14th century. The focus was not only to understand the law but also the culture, art and other essentials presiding in human life. When formal education began in the US, their professors followed a similar process. Mooting, like other essentials, is borrowed from Britain. I would like to give you an example for the international Modecode competition, that is Jessup Modecode. Jessup Mode is one of the most prestigious international Modecode that you can participate. When it comes to international Modecode competitions, as I have already mentioned, students all across the globe will be joining you and there will be a memorial scrutiny round before getting into the competition or oral presentation. So you have to get through the memorial scrutiny. If your memorial is eligible, only then you can proceed with the oral presentation rounds. This is not only for the international moot court competitions, there are certain national moot court competitions as well, where there will be a memorial scrutiny round where you have to send your memorial and they'll analyze your memorial, and if it is up to the mark, up to the standard, only then you can participate in the competition, or else you cannot. That is the memorial scrutiny round. So I hope you got an idea about the different kind of moot court competitions. If yes, then let's move on to the next slide, that is how to form a moot court team. So how you can apply for a moot court competition is also an important aspect. The colleges which are organizing the moot court competitions will be publishing their brochure in various online platforms like Loctopus, Livelo and so on. And also they'll be sending personal invitations to various law colleges. So what you have to do is, either you can get the brochure from the online platforms and you can get in touch with your moot court society, and you can have an internal moot competition within your college, and then you can get selected for the moot court team. Or else you can go speak to your moot court society, whomever is in charge, and then you have to say them that you are interested to take part in a moot court competition, and then they will do whatever necessary thing that could help you to participate in a moot court competition. Whenever the competitions comes, they will inform you so that you can prepare for the moot court and go for the competitions. So the first step of this is to form a team. You can go for a competition with the team members from your college. When it comes to the formation of a moot team, in normal cases a moot team shall comprise of 3 members, that is 2 mooters and 1 researcher. Mooters are supposed to do the oral arguments. The issues that are dealt during the oral round shall be divided among the 2 mooters. The first mooter has to explain the facts of the case in brief. In brief, in the sense, the fact sheet will always be, in some cases, some competitions, the fact sheet will be for 3 to 4 pages. So you have to comprise it and you have to minimize it into a minute to 1 minute. So you have to brief it in such a way that you include all the important and relevant points, and it should be within a minute. So that's how you have to brief the facts, and the first mooter is supposed to do that. When it comes to the second mooter has to deal with the remaining issues that are dealt under the memorial, and also the second mooter has to deal with the prayer. In the prayer, you will be explaining about everything that you are asking that you are pleading from the judges. So prayer is also an important part of the moot court oral presentation. So next comes the researcher. The researchers are supposed to do the legal research, as the name itself suggests. They are also responsible for formatting the memorial and appearing for the researcher's test if there is any for the particular moot court competition. There are certain competitions where there will be a separate researcher test. So they will be provided, either it will be a kind of interview kind, or it will be like a test series. So the researcher has to go and attend it. Sometimes they may ask you the questions relating to the fact sheet. At times they will ask some general questions. So it all depends upon the competition, and it all depends upon the discretion of the college that you are taking part into the competition. Also, I have mentioned that the researcher is supposed to draft the memorial. The memorial, though it can be drafted by anyone in the moot team, but it is usually the researcher who does it. But there is no written rule that the researcher himself or herself has to do all the drafting work. It can be done by anyone, but usually it is the researcher who does that. Researchers also lessen the burden of research of the speakers, that is the mooters, and also help the mooters during their oral arguments. When during their oral arguments, when the mooters cite a case, the researcher used to hand over a copy of the judgment sheet to the panel through a bench clerk. Also, at times the researcher used to prepare the compendium of cases and hand it over to the bench. So it is the researcher who helps the mooters to reduce their work. And also it is the usual trend that almost all the moot team comprise of 3 members, but there are certain colleges in their brochure they'll mention that you can also form a team of 2, that is 2 mooters, and either of the mooter can act as a researcher as well. But as per my personal suggestion, I would suggest you to always form a team of 3, because if it is a team of 3, the period of research work, the period of memorial work is always a stressful period. It could be either a month or 15 days, whatever. It depends upon the date from which you are registering to the date of the competition. So you will be going through a stressful period during the preparation of your memorial, and when it is a team of 3, you can divide the work amongst yourself, and that will be a sort of stress relief for you as well. So my personal suggestion would be go for a team of 3. When you're going for your first moot, I would suggest you should go for a team of 3 rather than a team of 2. And when you are experienced and you gain confidence, then you can try for a team of 2 if you feel it necessary. But otherwise, go for a team of 3 as such. So that's all about how to form a moot court team. So let's enter into the next slide. Moving further with the next slide, analyzing the moot proposition. You can see in the screen share that I have divided it into 3. How many reads, how to break the proposition, and how to start. Start obviously should be through a casual read, without any presumptions or without any planning to gather more knowledge or more points. Just go for a casual read. Be very casual, just try to understand what is the story that they are putting in the moot proposition. Once you read the entire proposition, you will get an idea. A story will be developed in your mind. Then keep a pen or a highlighter and read once again. Try to underline or highlight all the points that you feel is relevant. Whether it is for petitioner or for respondent, highlight it. Then again read it. Now this time you have to think that you are going to argue for the petitioner, and you have to gather all the possible points that would help you to substantiate the arguments during the oral presentation. So this time you have to gather points for the petitioner. Then again read. Gather points for the respondent. This is how you have to read the proposition, and you have to break the proposition. So how many reads? I would suggest you read as many times possible. If you have 10 days left, or if you have 15 days left, per day read some 5 times or 10 times, whatever it may be. Once you are thorough with the facts, that will help you a lot during your oral presentation, because 10 marks are allocated for knowledge of facts. The judges will ask you questions from the fact sheet, and you should be in a position to answer those questions without going through the facts once again. Just answer it without going for a second look. So you have to be thorough in that way. And one of the positive side of reading the facts repeatedly is that every time you read, you will find something new that helps you to give a new dimension to the entire moot proposition. So every time you read, you will understand something that is new, and you will gain some new knowledge. So read maximum number of times. That is my personal suggestion. Try to read at least 5 times a day the same moot proposition. You will feel bored. You will feel that, okay, I know everything, I know the facts, but still keep reading. Keep reading that, because that will help you a lot for your oral presentation. What is the minimum number of reads? For sure it is 1. And you have to go through the proposition at least once to understand what it is. But I am sure if you go through it just once, you won't understand anything, so you have to read it repeatedly. And some competitions, some colleges used to give you the issues at the end of the proposition, at the end of the story. But some colleges, they won't provide you with the issues. So you have to find out your own issues. So your own issue, in the sense, you can't go randomly make any issue. No, you have to find out the relevant issues and you have to argue for that. You have to prepare the memorial for those relevant issues. And how you can find the issues? The most important, one of the very easiest tip for that is that in almost all the moot propositions, the issues will be there in the last two paragraphs or last three paragraphs. Concentrate on those and try to find out the issues. Mostly the first issue will be a jurisdiction, whether the court has a jurisdiction to try the case, or whether the petitioner has a locus standi, or whether it is maintainable, the same thing. So, but there are certain propositions where it will be given that the jurisdiction is already accepted, the case is already accepted by the court, then you don't need to argue for the jurisdiction. If it is not mentioned, then you have to argue for the jurisdiction. After this, you have to keep going with finding the relevant areas of law which is revolving the issues. If it is a constitutional issue, if it is something against the violation of fundamental rights, then you have to go find all the relevant constitutional cases in order to substantiate your claim. It need not be just a constitutional law case. It will be something, a constitutional, a family, or it can be clubbed with so many laws. Out of one, I have attended a moot competition where there was issues from there where the problem was concerned with constitutional law, excuse me, criminal procedure code, and evidence act, and so many. It was also concerned with national security, so many things. So you have to go through all the relevant laws that is mentioned in your proposition, and you have to do research on that law, and you have to find out all the necessary sections, articles, or case laws in order to substantiate your claim. Further, you must find the most reliable research materials as well. So that's all about how to analyze the moot proposition. So all these, as I have already mentioned, everything is dealt in brief now. So you don't need to worry about any of these. Once you form a team, the next thing that you have to understand is how you have to do a research work. The research work, most of the moot propositions that you will be dealing will be relating to an issue that is occurring during the time of the competition, or might be relating to an already existing dispute. So first thing you have to find out is you have to figure out to which issue it is related to. I can give you an example. When it was the CAA NRC issue going on, almost all the law colleges all across the country was portraying the same issue in a different dimension as their moot court proposition. So the same way, almost all the law colleges that they are conducting the moot court competition will be putting an issue that is quite famous, and that will also help you to do more, that will also help you in doing the legal research. I can give you another example. A competition which I attended, the case was something relating to the love jihad that has happened in Kerala. So the moment I could figure out that okay, this is something that is relating to the love jihad, it helped me to do my research work in a pretty easily manner. So what you have to find is, you have to find out to which issue your moot proposition is related to and go behind it. But always keep in mind that it won't be exactly same. The one who said the moot proposition will be very cunning, and he or she might have made some extra masalas or some twists and turns in your moot proposition, which makes it different from the original issue. So you have to understand it, and you have to differentiate it, and you have to do the legal research. The next thing that you have to do when it comes to the research work is that you have to learn how to use the legal databases such as Manupatra and SEC Online. There are so many online sites where you can find out the judgments. Manupatra is a very helpful site that you can use, and also SCC Online is also a very much helpful site. But Indian Kanun is also there, but that is not highly recommended. But if you can't get access to Manupatra or SCC online, you can go for Indian Kanun as well. If you can't get access to Manupatra, SCC or an AIR reporter, then go for Indian Kanun. And almost all the law colleges, there will be all India reporters, and also the Supreme Court cases, various law journals, and every kind of magazines that could help you in your research work. So go to the library, spend so many hours in a library and do the research work. Then the next thing is, you must know how to read the judgments. That is also an important part. A judgment will be around there are judgments where it will be for some 300 pages. You can't go through each and every line just to find out a relevant citation that you can use in your memorial. So what you have to do is, you have to type the keywords that are related to your issue in the judgment. So Control F and just type down the keywords and find out whether it is there in the judgment, and read it out and try to understand whether it is relevant for your mood issue. If yes, then you can use it. And also, another important and helpful tip that I can give you is that when going for the research work, if you got a case, then go to the citations. You'll find so many other cases, related cases. You can go search, and in those cases also you may find some sort of valid points that will help you to substantiate your claim. Learn how to read by skimming through them but locating the important parts relevant to your mood problems that I have already mentioned. And also, you have to try to cover all the available law books, articles, law reports, and all the law journals in order to get a vast overview. This will also help you during your oral presentation. When you get a vast overview over the subject, that will help you to get answers for all the questions that are asked to you during the oral presentation. So try to get all the information that you can gain from all the available sources. This is just a brief on how to do the research work. Everything in detail will be explained by the other lecturers through other classes. So I am just dealing everything in brief and not anything in detail. So you don't need to worry about all those things. Everything in detail will be covered through the other sessions. So this is just an introductory part. Keep in mind. Drafting the memorial, what you have to follow is that you have to just follow the rules that are mentioned in the competition brochure. Every college, when they organize a moot court competition, they'll publish a brochure, and inside that there'll be a rule book where they'll mention all the rules and regulations that you have to follow when you're taking part in the competition. There they'll also mention you how you have to draft a memorial. What is the font size, what is the font type that you have to use, what is the line space that you have to use, what kind of border that you have to put, what is the order of contents that you have to display. Everything will be mentioned in the brochure. So you have to go as per that, because this drafting of the memorial will always be a highlight, and this will help you to gain more marks for your memorial. Because almost all the colleges, almost all the teams will be citing the same cases, same thing, everything might be same. So if you follow all the rules and everything perfectly, then you may gain a prize for the memorial. Almost all the colleges keep a prize for the memorial. Best memorial award will be there. So if you do everything perfectly, then you can get a prize for your memorial as well. So the contents of the memorial. The first thing, there will be a cover page. In the cover page, you have to mention who is the petitioner, who is the respondent, and against whom respondent. The petitioner is the one who files the case before the honorable bench, and the respondent is the person against whom the case is filed. This is the basic things. I hope all of you know these. If not, I hope this might have helped you. So the petitioner and the respondent, you have to mention the name of the petitioner and the respondent, and also you have to mention before which court you are filing the case, whether it is before the Honorable Supreme Court or whether it is before the Honorable High Court. You have to mention all those things. Yeah, and on the top you have to mention the competition name. If it is some ABC competition, ABC law school moot competition, then you have to mention that with the year, and you have to mention the team code that is allocated to you at the top right side. So this is the cover page. The next page comes the table of contents, where you have to list down all the contents that you are all the things that you are going to mention in your memorial. That is table of contents, and there you have to put the serial number, the name of the content, and the page numbers as well. The next thing is list of abbreviations. The list of abbreviations include all the abbreviations that you have used inside your memorial. That is, for example, if you have used ART dot instead of article, then you have to mention that. SCC instead of Supreme Court cases, you have to mention that. SCJ instead of Supreme Court journals, then you have to mention that. So you have to mention everything, that every abbreviations that you have mentioned inside your memorial, that you have to list out. Next thing that you have to do is index of authorities. The authorities that you have cited inside your memorial, whether it is constitutional law, whether it is the interpretation, or whether it is the family law, whatever law that you have used, you have to mention it in the index of authorities. Next thing that you have to do is statement of jurisdiction. Statement of jurisdiction, under that what you have to do is you have to mention under which article you are approaching the Honorable Court. If it is a writ petition before the Honorable Supreme Court, then you have to mention under Article 32 of the Constitution, and then you have to mention what is under Article 32 in the statement of the jurisdiction. After that, in the next page, you have to state the facts. The statement of the facts should be in brief. If you are preparing the memorial for the petitioner, then you have to brief the facts in such a way that is favorable for the petitioner. But you are not supposed to manipulate the facts. That is one point that you have to keep in mind when you are arguing before the bench, or when you are preparing your memorial. Every time you have to keep in mind that you are not supposed to manipulate the facts. You can say anything that is said in the fact sheet, that is given in the fact sheet, but you cannot manipulate, you cannot create something of your own. You can only argue with what is given in your fact sheet, and you can use laws, you can use laws and cases and everything to substantiate your points, but you are not supposed to manipulate. So you can prepare your petitioner side memorial in a slightly favorable manner to the petitioner, and your respondent side memorial the facts in a slightly favorable manner to the respondent. And the fact sheet, usually there will be a rule that it should be within 2 pages or 1 page. Sometimes the original fact sheet will be for 3 to 4 pages, but you have to brief it down to 1 or 2 pages. The next thing that you have to mention in your memorial is the issues raised. In issues raised, you will be just putting all the issues that you are going to argue in your oral presentations. If there is 4 issues that you are going to argue, you have to just list out all the 4 issues. And when you put the issues, you have to put it like whether or not the petition is maintainable before the Honorable Court, whether or not the implied provision is violative of Article 21 of the Constitution. That way you have to put the issues every time. The next thing is you have to summarize the arguments. Summarizing the arguments, it is like if the first issue, whether the petition is maintainable before the Honorable Supreme Court of India. If it is so, then you have to summarize the argument in such a way that it is humbly submitted before the Honorable Court that the petition is maintainable before the Honorable Supreme Court of India under Article 32 of the Constitution, and if there is any reason, just mention the reason, and that's it. That is what we are supposed to put in the summary. Next, we have to go further with the arguments advanced. In arguments advanced, you'll be explaining every point, every case law that you're going to use in order to substantiate your argument, everything that you'll be mentioning in your arguments advanced. And at the end, once you're done with the arguments advanced of all the issues, you will begin with the prayer. In prayer, you'll be pleading for what you want, the award that you're expecting from the court, the judgment that you're expecting from the court in favor of you, that you will be mentioning in the prayer side. This is all about the memorial, and this is how you are supposed to draft the memorial. So there is some usual drafting citation methods. Almost all the colleges, all the competition, they'll mention that you have to go as per the blue book citation, or the citation that you're supposed to use will be mentioned. So you have to go as per that. So that's all about the memorial drafting. The next thing that we are going to discuss is about the oral presentation. The oral presentation happens during the date of the competition. So the first thing that you have to know about the oral presentation is about the courtroom manners. The courtroom manners include certain etiquettes that you need to follow when you're addressing the bench, when you're going to do something, when you're going to brief the facts, or when you are going to begin with the arguments, whatever it may be, you have to seek the permission from the bench. All this comes under the court manners. And also, when the judges enter into the courtroom, you're supposed to stand, and you can sit only after they get seated. And when the judges enter into the courtroom, you have to stand and you have to bow, and then they'll sit, and then you have to sit. So you have to wait until they sit, or you have to wait until you get the permission from the bench to get seated. And before beginning with the arguments, what you have to do is you have to arrange everything. You are not supposed to talk unnecessarily in a courtroom. That all comes under the dishonor of the bench. So you are not supposed to do anything that will go against the court manners. You have to be silent. If you want to speak to your co-counsel or with your researcher, you can pass chats. You can write it down and you can pass the chats. But keep in mind that don't simply pass chats unnecessarily. Only when it is necessary, you can pass the chats. So always keep it limited and minimal, and you can pass chats if you have anything urgent to say, but try not to speak to each other when you are inside the courtroom. So before before beginning the argument, first thing you have to do is, if you are getting the lot for the petitioner, you have to stand at your place and you have to seek the permission from the bench. If it may please the bench, may I address the bench, your lordship? Then they'll grant the permission. Then you have to go to the podium, and then you have to start the oral presentation. So everything, before doing everything, you have to ask, you have to plead the permission from the bench in order to begin it. And at the end of each and every argument, you have to ask whether the bench is pleased with the arguments. If the bench is pleased with the arguments, only then you can go further with the next issue. If the bench is not convinced, then you have to try to convince them. If they say yes, you may proceed, then you can go further with the next issue. Also, one more thing that you have to keep in mind is that when the bench asks you a question, try to answer the question then itself. And if you can't at any cost, then only you have to seek the permission from the bench. If the bench is pleased, Then if the bench is pleased, the council seeks permission to give the answer for this question subsequently. Then you can say something as such. And if the bench is suggesting you some point and you want to disagree to that, then you have to disagree in the utmost manner with all the politeness and all the respect that you have to show that you have to agree in such a way that they don't feel that they are dishonored. If they say a point and if you disagree, you have to say that the council understand the excellency of your lordships, but the council would like to disagree slightly on a very few points. Then you have to do this in such a way so that it won't be against the courtroom manners. Then the another important aspect is that you have, when it comes to citing the precedents, you have to cite the entire thing. Like you are not supposed to say AIR, you have to read it as All India Reporter of 1972. Like that you have to read of page number 32. That way you have to read the entire thing, and you are not supposed to use the shortcuts when you are citing the relevant precedents. And when you do the oral presentation, always try to connect it with the facts. For example, if you are citing a case for if you are arguing for an issue which is relating to the violation of fundamental rights and Article 21 of the Constitution, for say if it is Maneka Gandhi case, if you are explaining it, you can say that okay, in Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India, the Supreme Court held that right to live includes right to live with human dignity or decency as well. So when you cite that, after this citing the case, you have to say that here in the instant case, the so and so thing has happened, which has violated the right to live the right to life in a dignified manner, and hence that has violated the fundamental rights of the person, and therefore it is humbly submitted before the Honorable Court that Article 21 of the Constitution is violated. The same way you have to substantiate your argument after every case that you are citing. So once you cite a case, you have to connect it with the facts. Then you have to again cite whatever, or if you are citing a plethora of cases, then cite all those cases, and then you go for connecting it with the facts, so that the judges will get convinced. And also at the end of the arguments, at the end of each issue, you have to once again brief it out. You have to again say that it is humbly submitted before the Honorable Court that the petitioners or the respondents has violated the Article 21 of the petitioner, whatever it may be. You can connect it with the facts of the case. That is an important point. Then you have to answer all the questions that are asked to you by the judges. If you don't know a question, if you don't know an answer to the question that is asked to you, then you have to say that the council seeks apologies, Your Lordship. The council is not in a position to recollect the answer, recollect that section, or is not in a position to give an answer to that question. The council seeks apologies. You have to say this. You have to say everything in the most humble manners before the bench. You have to address the bench every time as honorable bench, and you have to address the panel as lordship or ladyship. If there is gents in the bench, you have to address them as lordships, and if there is ladies in the bench, then you have to address them as ladyships. And then after the end of the oral presentation is about the prayer, and that's all about the oral presentation. Since I am discussing everything in brief, I think this is enough about the oral presentation. Further, a separate class will be taken for oral presentation. So this is enough about the oral presentation. Last but not the least, I'll just summarize certain do's and do nots that you have to keep in mind when you're preparing for the moot court competitions. First thing is that try to convince. Just convince. Don't try to complicate things. Just convince the judges. That's all you need to do in a moot court competition. But try to convince doesn't mean that you can manipulate and convince. Just stick on to the facts. Just twist it, turn it, but don't manipulate it. You can use it in any way that is allowed within the framework of the fact sheet. So try to convince, keep it as simple as possible. Don't take the facts lightly, read it as much as possible. Every time you read the facts, you'll gain more ideas, more dimensions, which will help you during the oral presentation. Next thing is that address the bench appropriately. To which before which bench you are applying, you are filing the case, you have to address the bench as per that accordingly. Then always try to be calm and pleasing, and try not to race or anything. Just always keep a calm and pleasing tone rather than an aggressive tone or anything when you're arguing before the bench. Always argue with the respect. That's it. Then the next thing is frame the memorial as per the rules that are provided in the brochure. Always stick on to the rules that are provided. Follow the font size, follow the citation rules, citation which they have mentioned. If it is blue book, go as per blue book. If it is something else, go as per that. So always stick on to the rules that are given. And then try to answer the questions that are asked by the judges at that time itself. If a question is asked now, you try your level best to answer it at that point itself rather than dragging it up. Then try not to get messed up during the oral presentation. Use sound modulations and take a pause whenever it's necessary. That will help you to gain the attention of the judges. When you are going to cite an important case or important judgment, just pause for a second or 2 seconds and then narrate the case or cite the case. Then you will gain their attention. So use this technique as well. Then that's all about the introductory class. So I would like to conclude this class. So moot court, before winding up, I would like to give you some more tips relating to moot court. Almost everyone in their first year of moot court will find, first year of college finds moot court to be a very fascinating thing. Even I felt, okay, moot court seems so good, I should go take part in a moot court competition. But at that time, you'll only see all the fancy side of moot court. You won't see how much hard work, determination, effort, pressure that you have to put when you are preparing the moot court competition. You'll only see the fancy side of moot court competition, but always keep in mind that you have to work a lot for moot court competitions. It's not as fancy as you see from outside. You have to invest your time, you have to work hard, you have to be determined, and you have to have a capacity to handle the pressure. Everything within the time limit you have to do. So you should be calm and composed in everything to go through the phase of moot court. So be ready for that. It is like a war. So be ready to get into the war, and it's not as fancy as you see from outside. There is so much of pain behind every moot court competition and every moot court memorial that are prepared. So understand that side as well of the moot court. Moot court is obviously fascinating if you get the spirit of arguing, if you get the spirit of preparing the memorial, and if you get the true spirit of the competition. It is very much fascinating, and it is the most inspiring thing, something that help you to learn a lot of things in your law school life, something that you will learn so many things other than in a better way than you learn from the textbooks. If you learn for an examination, it will be different, and if you learn for the moot court, it will be different. So moot court is very, very helpful thing for your law school, for molding yourself in your law school. So whenever you need a help, you can ask help from your reliable seniors and also the lecturers from your college, and try to understand from everyone. Try to ask them questions and learn from the points and advices that they are giving from their experience, and make use of everything. Voting culture is something exclusive to law schools, and every law student should try it at least once in their law school period. So that's all I have to say about moot court. Hope this class was interesting, and hope you all understood at least something about moot court. I know if you are a beginner, you will find it somewhat difficult, but I hope you understood at least a few things about the moot court. Everything will be explained in the upcoming classes in detail. So this is just a brief picture about moot court. Hope this was okay, and hope you all understood something. Thank you and have a nice day.